Hey gym owners, Matthew Becker here from gymlawyers.com. And as the title of this video said, we want to talk in this video about how a gym owner recently lost out on a $100,000 sale of his gym and how it could have been prevented. Mainly because we don't want you to go into the same problem if you want to sell your gym as well. So here are the facts. This gym owner decides that he wants to sell his gym, and he goes out and he finds a buyer. And he negotiates with the buyer, whatever they do, and they decide on a purchase price of $100,000. And so they start to negotiate back and forth on the paperwork, and they write up all of these various assignments and the asset purchase agreements, and they get everything in place. They get a payment schedule and everything else. And they come to the closing, and they realize that there was one big problem that nobody ever considered. What's going to happen to the commercial lease? Everybody up to this point assumed, for whatever reason, that the landlord was easily going to agree to transfer the lease from company one over to the buying company, company two. And what nobody decided to do was to look in the commercial lease to determine whether or not this was possible. And when it came time to close and they went to transfer that lease over, the landlord said, nope. My commercial lease gives me the final decision as to whether or not you, company A, are allowed to transfer your lease. And they didn't want to do it, mainly because they had no experience with company B, and they didn't know that company B was going to be able to come in and run a successful business, and so that's a lot of risk for the landlord. But all of this could have been avoided if people bothered to look at the commercial lease to begin with and determine what the proper steps were in order to transfer the lease over to company B. Oftentimes, this is done in an assignment or a sublease. And so you can go into your own lease now and you can look at what the requirements are for you to be able to assign or sublet your lease to a new gym owner if you go and decide to sell your gym. The other problem here was that both parties spent a ton of money on attorneys who were inexperienced with gyms before anybody decided to look to see if this was going to be a problem. At Gym Lawyers PLLC, this is why we exist. We have this experience. We have this experience specifically with gym owners so that we can avoid these problems up front. Had that gym owner called us from the beginning, we would have said, hold on, gym owner A, pull out your lease. What does it say about assignments? Then we would have reached out to the landlord and said, will you consent to this assignment? The landlord still might have said no, but there's also a lot better chance that the landlord would have said yes, because you're following the proper procedure of the lease and you're not coming to me at the 11th hour and demanding that I let you assign the lease over to the new owner. These are a lot of the complexities that come into buying and selling. It's not always just so simple as taking the money and transferring everything over to the buyer. Reach out to us, guys, if you have any questions, or if you're even contemplating going through this process. Let us make sure that you've got your ducks in a row so you don't end up in an issue like this down the road that ends up costing you $100,000.